Okay, so just to spend a little bit more time talking about trapping here and what we can do with trapping. Again, there's lots of different sort of options that you have, but let's say I'm going to try and make something super genius and exciting, like a smiley face. I'm going to go ahead and click on this, and I'll get my yellow color for the classic American smiley face kind of guy, right? And pick a kind of a yellow out. Okay, so I've got my fill here that's yellow, and then I have my stroke that's the black line around it, right? But I really like that stroke to be bigger. So one of the things that I like to do is just to keep everything in layers, right? I like this layer, I like to mark that one yellow, and then I'll make a different layer for my black so that I know kind of which thing is which. So what I'll do here is I'm just going to copy this layer. I'm going to drag it down here to this little spot and copy it. So now I have a yellow layer and I'll call this one black, right? Just put K so I know which one's black. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to go ahead and select the yellow layer. And if I want, I can lock the K one so I know I'm not messing with it. And I'm just going to remove the stroke. So I'm going to come over here and do the international no sign. So no stroke, which just changes this from a yellow yellow kind of oval with the black line around it to just being a yellow line or a yellow blob. That's all I want, right? So I'm going to go and lock the yellow layer down. I'm going to go back over here to black, unlock that, select the black layer, and this time I'm going to do the international no sign for my yellow. So there's no stroke. There's no fill. There's only a stroke, right? And so now I know, okay, if I turn off this layer, I just have the black line. If I turn off this layer, I just have the yellow, right? But if I went to separate these out and print them, it's almost impossible for me to get this sort of tight little spot that's in between. Hello, here we go. That's in between these two. So I'll show you what I mean here in a minute. So when you go to print, let's say I've got my black one, and I can't quite line it up perfectly, right? I've got just a little bit of a problem here, right? So what will end up happening is my black line will end up being just a little bit off, right? Which is not the end of the world, except for the fact that over here on the other side, I've got a little bit more of a, I've got an issue there where they're not overprinting over each other correctly. So what they call this in like the printing industry is trapping. So what you want to do is you want to build trapping into your image so that it you compensate for the fact your printing might not be perfect, right? You might have some issues. So probably the best and easiest way to do that is just to punch up my stroke. So if I punch up the stroke on this path, so I select it, make sure it's selected, and punch up the stroke here 10, if I look at this now, if I zoom in on it, and I select that yellow, and if I'm a little bit off now, it's going to take an awful lot for that to not line up. Like I'm going to really have to be off by a lot for that to be for that to become like a real big problem, right? So as long as I kind of compensate for my trapping, that really helps. One thing that a lot of people like to do is they like to make their colors match, and they like to mix the colors together, right? So you want to try and mix your colors on the two things. So I could change my stroke here to blue, right? And then what would happen is that I would have my blue would overprint over the top of the yellow, and it would make a green color, right? So one way you can kind of simulate that is you can actually go in here to your item. Let's see, the object. Oh, sorry. You can go up here into your opacity, and you can change the opacity. You can also change the blending mode. So that's another way that you can kind of get a sense for what this will look like. Like if I crank my opacity back a little bit here, it kind of helps me see what's going on, with the two different colors. So lots of different ways you can kind of go into Illustrator now and kind of go crazy with all this, with this stuff. But if I was going to do this kind of a print, I would definitely compensate for the trapping, and then maybe I would make like my as long as I'm on the yellow or on the black one, I could make, my classic eyes here, and I'd fill that with the same color, and I could even just select that guy and copy it, and then do some sort of a arc tool here, right? And I could make some kind of a make some sort of like a smiley face line like that, right? And then keep all that on one layer and that on another one, and then I would just have to convert these into black before I go to print them out. And I could even also add in some registration marks that could show up in both. So if I wanted to do that, I would lock this layer, make another layer, and just call this like reg marks. And then I would use the line tool and just do a little crosshairs, but I would probably change those so they're not so big. I'd probably change those back to 1 point and paste them. Copy and paste them and put them in the corners. And then I'm able to, you know, kind of know where my registration is for all of these things. You can also do this in the printer if you want to. And then I would just make sure that I leave this layer turned on, and I'd print this layer right here like this. Print that out, and then I would turn this one off and turn the yellow on and print that off and make sure it's turned to black, and then I'll have my flat stuff and I'm all ready to roll. So that's basically what trapping is. So you want to think about these things, and you'll know when you don't do it the first time. Your print will look screwy and you won't quite know why. And it's because you probably didn't compensate for it and factor in trapping.